Was I wrong after all these years to be scared of the brand Panerai? Maybe not. Let's get into it! Yes, and welcome to the Mad Watch Collector Show. And it is episode 3 of a series I like to call Buying at BQ. Yeah. There are many of you out there looking to buy your first luxury watch. You know, between the £1,000 and the £5,000 mark. Well, BQ have an amazing amount of pre-owned luxury watches in that ballpark price range. And this series is dedicated to cherry picking the best ones on their website and showcasing them to you guys. So the brand today is Panerai. Yeah. I always thought that this Panerai logo looked like an aftershave, you know? This is a big day for me because it's the first time a Panerai has ever been on this channel. For obvious reasons. Too big! Anyway, the one I've got in today has definitely made me change my mind. A bit. Now, for those of you that don't know, Panerai have a fantastic history. And I'm not going to go through every single decade to tell you all the history information, just the parts that I like. For instance, the brand was first formed in 1860. That's a long time ago. The other thing is probably the Panerai Radiomere was probably the first watch actually made for divers, specifically Italian frogmen. The other interesting things are, effectively, the first Panerai watches were Rolexes. And the only thing Panerai was the dials. A huge version of the Rolex Oyster case was used for these watches because at the time they were known as the most watertight watch cases in the business. But also the movements were Rolex. And they were actually pocket watches just turned on its side and shoved in a watch case. The lugs were soldered on. Eventually they were made part of the case. Panerai also patented a luminous compound called Radiomere, which was radium, highly toxic to anyone that was around it, which is why further on down the line, Panerai patented a new luminous compound called Luminor, which was tritium based. And from the 40s up until the 90s, Panerai were exclusively making instruments and watches for the Italian Navy. It was only until 1993 that the watches were finally available for civilians. And it took one civilian in particular, that's my impression, to explode the brand. Sylvester Stallone walked into a jeweler's shop in Florence and spotted a watch he liked. Yeah. That was a Panerai Luminor. He bought it and loved that watch so much, it was worn on the wrist of the movie Daylight. Yeah, not an amazing movie, not Judge Dredd, Demolition Man, or Rambo, but that was the moment Panerai became in everyone's eyesight. Once Italian, moved their factory to Switzerland, and the rest is history. Anyway, the sheer size of these watches and the sheer size of this wrist is the reason why you haven't seen one on the channel, because I tend to only review watches I want to have a look at or I want to buy. Now, thanks to BQ, I picked up a PAM 0005. It first came out in 2004 and was discontinued in 2016. But is this base model watch going to turn my thoughts around about the brand Panerai? Plus, at the end, what the heck is the wife gonna think about this? Are you a Panerai ready? Let's go! So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the beast. The Panerai PAM 0005. It's a Luminor Marina, and the difference with a Radiomere to a Luminor is this unique crown guard. And to me, when I shut my eyes and think of a Panerai, this is what I come up with. It's beastly, it's bold,
it's flipping huge.
There isn't a brand that looks like it, and they've really kept to their roots, haven't they? You can definitely see the cushion style case from the very first ones made from the 1940s, thanks to Rolex. But straight away, I'm getting tactical vibes. This watch should be on a big, beefy general out in the jungle somewhere. I'm surprisingly liking it, which I didn't think I would do. The crown guard does have this modular feel to it. We've got a big polished bezel. In actual fact, the whole case is polished stainless steel, except for the modular crown guard. And first impressions, it just feels and looks like an instrument, you know? I really do like it. I'm very worried of putting it on my wrist now because I'm gonna not like it, but off wrist, it's flipping awesome. Quick spec check! Okay, so big dimensions here. 44mm in case diameter. It's 14.5mm thick, 53 lug to lug, and it has a lug width of 24mm. So they are some of the biggest dimensions I've had on this channel. However, we know Panerais are meant to be big. They started off as big, so they almost get a pass to me. We have a beautiful domed sapphire glass protecting the dial. If the crown is not screwed in, you pull out this lever, which allows you to pull the crown out. This watch is water resistant to 300 meters. Now, the new Panerais that are out at the minute are only 100 meters. No, it's not going to affect us in our daily lives, but I'm surprised they didn't at least go halfway to 200 meters. What has happened to this case from 2004 that has made a Panerai 200 meters less effective underwater? I have to say, yes, the strap is huge, but it is very nice. It feels like the vulcanized rubber from your rubber bees or your Everest straps. And it's not your normal spring bars that are in these lugs. They are screwed in, which is definitely a safe thing for me. A buckle alert. That has got to be the biggest buckle I have ever seen on a watch. It's almost as big as my head. Okay, let's look at the face. Dial time. And you cannot have a go at this watch for not being legible, can you? Back in the old days, Panerai used a radium disc that a dial was sandwiched on top and the numbers were stenciled and cut out. Here we don't have radium, we don't even have tritium. We have C3 superluminova, but it does appear like we have that sandwich effect on this as well. Everything else is printed on the dial. You can tell this is a Luminor Marina because that was the design that had the small seconds hand subdial. And you have to say it's the only thing out of the whole dial that at first looks a bit weird. We have a curvy, rounded hand as opposed to the batons on the main dial. It almost looks a little bit comic-y, but it really works. All in all, a very clean dial. You guys know I love that. When you get to the price of these though, you're always looking for little things and parts of the watch that makes you think, oh, that's why it's that price. Which is what my problem was with the Tudor Ranger. The watch face looked like it came from £1,000 watch at best. Maybe it's because that watch isn't as iconic as this Panerai. So we've got lume on the hands, lume on the indices and the sub dial. Out of 10, how much does this puppy glow? Well, yes, it did exactly what I hoped it'd do. Glow a good un. Okay, powering this baby is a in-house, I say in-house, it's the caliber OP2, which essentially is a movement based on the ETA 6497-1, 56 hours of power reserve, and interestingly, it only purrs away at 21,600 beats per hour. That's the same tick as a Seiko 5. It's a certified chronometer. Now, recently, in the last year or two, Panerai has come out with their own in-house movements, proper in-house, with the caliber 6000. But again, interestingly, it only purrs away at 21,600 beats per hour, mimicking this ETA based one. Anyway, operating this watch is quite a novelty because you have to unhook that lever. This is a manual wind movement only, and I've got to say, it's not the easiest of things to turn because of that crown protection system. It does feel like you're winding up an old pocket watch. There is no hacking to this movement either, meaning the seconds hand doesn't stop when you pull out the crown the whole way, but it is satisfying when you push this lever in. Ah. Hello. On my 6.5-inch wrist, and you know what? I don't hate it. I really thought I was going to dislike this, saying it's too big, it's a monstrosity, it's a hideous beast. Why do Panerai still do this? And yes, it is a big watch, and it probably doesn't fit me. And I'm alright with that. But for anyone with a 6.5-inch wrist and is desperate to own a Panerai, it doesn't look stupid. But if you're buying a Panerai, it's gotta be big. And if Panerai were to come out with a 38mm of this Luminor, I wouldn't want it. I'd be cheating myself, I'd be cheating Paneristas. Panerais don't do sleeves. You can't argue with a Panerai. It looks like an action movie star's watch. And that's one of the big reasons why I love the Seiko Army. This has made my mind up. I'm not gonna buy one, but it feels, it looks like a proper good watch. Now this is a 2009 Luminor Marina. And these watches in terms of value still do hold a good price. On the BQ website, this one is going for £4,250. Now yes, sure, there's a little bit of wiggle room there. The one thing I do appreciate with Panerai is that when they came out with their own in-house movements, they didn't hike up the prices of their new watches. Unlike another certain Swiss brand, Oris. You can't buy a Luminor Marina in this iteration anymore, and for anyone that wants to get into Panerai, these base models are the ones to go for. Here it is, my wife's thoughts on the Panerai PAM 0005. I don't like it. The whole thing is huge. That's what she said. Quite. It also looks like a piece of machinery that is used in a carpenter's place, something that would cut wood. The logo also looks like a martini logo or a bottle of alcohol. Reminds me of a waistband of a pair of Calvin Klein knickers. Okay, so Panerai's not for my wife. Let's move on. There are tons of amazing watches on the BQ website. The link's in the description below. Tell me if you found one that you like. But if you want a bit more of the Mad Watch Collector, click there and join. Want some merch? Who doesn't? In the description. But if I've got you for a few more minutes, why don't you check this beast out? Oh, this is a good one. This is a good one. One of my favorites, you know, especially of this year. Go on, click it, click it.